When did you first start playing drums?
Oh boy, that goes way back. Probably, it was in high school actually. I was about 14 years old, and then I started playing in the marching band and the high school, concert band, and the ROTC bugle drum and bugle corps. And after that, my cousin had a set of drums at his house. He had been playing for a couple of years already, so I would always go to his house and we'd sit around and play by records and listen to things, And that's how I basically learned how to play, just listening to records.
Who'd you listen to?
The big bands, Woody Herman, Stan Kenton, all those guys. The Dorseys, whoever the big bands were at that time,
Who was your favorite?
Oh, I don't know. All the guys had good bands. Probably Stan Kenton, because even back in those early days, he was more innovative. He was doing things that nobody had heard of before,
Did you listen to any of the country bands or the western swing?
No, never did. Oh, western swing a little bit. Of course, they had Bob Wills, about all you had really. And Tex Williams had a band. He was on the West Coast. Hank Thompson had a western swing band. There's just 3 or 4 bands actually all together.
So how did you get hooked up with the Louisiana Hayride?
Accident, I guess. I knew all the people that was on the show and running the show, so I'd go down there and talk to them from time to time. So they say, "Hey, you want to work on the Hayride?" That's when there was no drums on the show, so they decided to put drums on the show. But they said, "Well, we don't, want to just throw drums out there all of a sudden." So they put them behind this little thin curtain at first. I played a couple weeks back there. I could still hear, And then they said, "Well, why don't you just move the snare drum out?" So I moved the snare drum out. "Well, you want you to bring a cymbal out." So okay, bring a cymbal. It was a gradual thing. And the next thing you know, they said, "Well, just bring all your drums one night. We'll see how it works." And it ended up with the kit.
Who were some of the people you played behind? Do you remember?
Oh, nah, I said Webb Pierce, Farron Young, Nat Stuckey was down there. David Houston was down there. These are all country artists, that was at the Hayride at one time or another. I'd done some stuff with Merle Kilgore, and you name it. They were all down there at one time or another.
Well, the Shreveport seems to have given the music business a lot of great musicians. There's you
Well,
and
it did.
James Burton.
James Burton. There's a whole bunch of guys that were there for years. Fred Carter Jr. Can't think of all the guys. A couple of guys that played with Ricky Nelson too, the bass player, and they had a lot of good musicians. I don't know where they come from. All of a sudden, they're all in Shreveport. It was kind of like a melting pot for musicians. None of us was working enough to make a living, but we all were there.
Did you all know each other?
Yeah, well, I knew them all. It wasn't, back then, there wasn't a lot of musicians in town. It wasn't a big town anyhow, and so everybody knew everybody. We all played clubs together and different things. Whoever called me, I'd say, "Well, call so and so, call this guy," and next thing you know, we'd pick up a little trio of a band.
So you didn't have just set bands per se?
No, back then you didn't. You really didn't. You'd hire, if you worked a country club, well, you'd hire the guys that could play that type music. Real subtle, quiet, Stardust, Moonglow, the hits of the day. And you could hire trumpet players and saxophone players and whatever. So that was, you had a band. Then if you had a country band, I knew the steel guitar players, I knew the guitar players that played country. So oh yeah, well, I know some guys. We'll just put them together.
What about James Burton? Did you know James back then?
Oh yeah, I knew James. Sure, yeah. Me and James worked some little joints together. Not a lot, but some. Every now and then we'd run into each other at one of them clubs we'd work.
So tell me about your first adventure with Elvis. How did you meet those guys?
Well, I was at the Hayride, and they come in to do a couple of spots. They had a couple little records going on, and they were getting play in Arkansas, Louisiana, Texas, and they said, "Well, we're going to bring this kid in. What do you think?" They brought me down, and they let me listen to the record. It was I forget who it was, Tillman Franks. He was kind of the booker management team down there. And I said, "Golly, boy, those guys really sound good." There only 3 pieces. I told him, I said, "It sounds like they got about 5 or 6 musicians." They said, "No, just Elvis, Scotty, and Bill." is with the, with the echoplex stuff and all that stuff. It really sounded big. I said, boy, this guy's really good. So they come in, Scotty said, hey, would you work with us tonight? Yeah. I said, let's go back to the dressing room and talk about it and see what you're doing. So him and Elvis and Scotty come on back there and they played. I said, yeah, we can do that, So what I did, I said, they had such a unique sound as it was. I said, best thing for me to do is get up there and not get in the way. Don't play no crashes, no noise. So I just played real easy, just a little rhythm for them, and that's all I played. And it worked out fine, and that's what they wanted, I guess. And
So you didn't play behind the curtain with Elvis?
no, I was out, by then I was out front like the rest of the guys, they finally let me out there. But, it was just a point of not getting in the way of what they were doing, So you learn that as you go as a musician, you learn not to get in the way. And that's the first thing I thought of. I said, man, I'm not going to get in their way. The sound is so good. I'll be cluttering up what they're doing. So I just didn't do it. And after I worked a while with them, I said, just play what you want to play. It's okay, That was Elvis. I don't care what you just play. Just play. We don't care. Make some noise.
So did you work with them for a while on the Hayride before you went
Yeah,
on the road?
we did. I did probably 2 or 3 shows together at the Hayride. And then one weekend they come up and say, well, we're going to go here to East Texas, Longview, Tyler, Kilgore, up into about 100 miles away. And they said, you want to go? I said, yeah, I'll go. So when I went and played those 4 days, we come back to Shreveport to do another Hayride thing. And they were going to go back to Memphis that same night. And they said, hey, we're going to go back to Memphis. And we don't have one show. We don't have nothing. We don't know if we'll ever get nothing. But if we ever do, would you like to work with us? I said, yeah. So I guess a couple of weeks later, they said, hey, we got about 10 dates. You want to go? I said, yeah, I had nothing else to do, It wasn't the Hayride, that's all I was really doing. And I said, yeah, I'll go. So it was just kind of gradual, just by chance me being there, and it happened,
Well, how'd you find out you were officially in the band?
Well, nobody ever told me for sure. They just said, would you work with it? And it was kind of a day-for-day basis, week to week, for a long time. And I forget, me and Scotty was talking about that not long ago. I was on his payroll, but not officially on their payroll. And then he told me the official date I was supposed to be hired on the band, but I hadn't been working with him for 5 or 6 months before that. But he said, no, I said, but the official date was so-and-so. Now, he knows what it was, I'd forgotten now.
So were you contracted, or were you just...
Nah, shake hands and yeah, well, I'll be here, you pay me X amount of dollars and I'll work X amount of days.
So is the story true that you were making more money than Scotty and Bill?
Yeah, I was. I don't know how that happened. Well, you got to remember that they were splitting the money. Scotty, Bill, and Elvis. He was getting 50, and they were splitting 50, which was 25 apiece. Well, then they had to pay me, and the car expenses, and the hotels, and all that out of theirs. So they were paying me $100 a week at the time. So I was making more money than those guys,
So that was coming out of Scotty and Bill's pay?
All of them.
And including Elvis?
Yeah, it come out of everybody's pocket because they were splitting it. See, Scotty and Bill was getting 25% each, and Elvis was getting 50%. So they would split all the expenses, which I was one of them, then the rooms, and the car, and the gas, and what all. So they didn't have a whole lot left.
So you were making more money than Elvis?
Yeah, they wasn't working with me. They were booking like $100 a day, $150 a day, $200 a day, And we was driving all over the United States to get that little old money. So by the time they got at the end of the week, there wasn't that much left,
Well, now when did you start to realize that Elvis was going to be something?
Well, we worked a long time. I didn't realize it. I don't think none of us did. And we were working, this was a few years later, we was working the Dallas Cotton Bowl, the old one. And I guess we had probably 35 or 40,000 people there. And he come out of the tunnel, one of those chutes in the back end of a Cadillac or a Lemon, some kind of car. And it looked like a young war out there. The light bulbs and the kids screaming and noise. And I said, my God, what was that, And I leaned over to Scotty, I said, I think Elvis is going to make it. And that is the only time I even thought about that. Because we didn't know what we were doing. We were going, say we'd be in Chicago tonight, we had to be in St. Louis the next day, and another time the next time. So we were like a day ahead of the press all the time. So we never knew, good or bad, what they were saying about us. So That's why we didn't know what was going on. We was always ahead of the press.
Now, what was it like traveling with Elvis at that time? Was he generally in a good mood, or?
Yeah, most of the time, yeah, he was. He get in an ill mood when he get tired. If we'd been on the road, say 3 or 4 weeks, at the end of that 4th week, he'd get a little bit irritable because he's getting tired. Because he did a lot of work, even when he was young. He worked hard on stage. And we knew when he was in an ill mood, said, leave him alone, he'll be all right in a couple of days. And he'd go and lay in a room maybe sometime a couple of days and come back out. Okay, guy, let's go, we're ready to go. He's fresh as a daisy. But you had to know when to leave him alone, that's all.
You never had any crosswords with him?
No. We just knew better. We could see if he was in an ill mood or something. Stay away from him for a few days.
Now, what about after the show? I've heard you guys talk about he had to wind down. Sometimes he had to run along beside the car.
Yeah, we'd walk him down the road some of us. I would walk sometimes. Whoever always turn. Might have been Scotty's turn. It might have been Bill's. We'd walk. We'd stop and get a hamburger or something. He ate fast. He'd get through with his. So I said, let's walk down the road here a little bit, because once he got in the car, if he wasn't unwound, God, he'd stay up all night long, listening to the radio and talking, yip. So we had to drive most of the time. So we had to kind of unwind him somehow or another. And we'd walk down the road with him maybe a mile or so, and then they'd come pick us up. They'd get through eating and drinking their coffee. Scotty and Bill, whoever was turned, and they'd pick us up down the road. And he'd get in the back seat, he'd go right to sleep. He wouldn't wake up, the sun hit him in the eyes the next morning.
Now, did you ever have people following you, like chasing you from town to town?
Yeah, they did. But we didn't outrun them. But we learned not to stop at the first restaurant close to that city, that little town, We'd always go down 50, 75 miles away. And we knew they wasn't going to follow us that far, So that's the only way, we didn't want to hurt their feelings or anything, but we had to get out of town because we were 500 miles away.
Well, now tell me a little bit about that trip with, I guess it was when you guys went to see Carl Perkins in the hospital.
Oh, we were going to New York, me and Scotty and Bill. Elvis was already, I think he took a train up, maybe a day before, or he was on the way. And I thought he might have been in New York, but I don't know. And we was playing the radio, and we heard it. We was up in Virginia somewhere. We was coming into New York the next few hours, And they said Carl Perkins just had a wreck. He was living, and I think his brother finally died, and he was in Delaware, somewhere up there. So we said, well, let's go see him, So we drove to Delaware. We passed New York, just went on up to Delaware, because we had another day or so to get to New York, so we wasn't pressed for time, So we went to see Carl. He was pretty well banged up. The whole bunch of them were just banged up bad. And I don't think Carl ever, forgot this. And man, of all the people I look up, and there you guys are, Look like a bunch of angels coming to see me.
So it was you three and not Elvis?
No, he wasn't with us at the time. He was I think he was in New York, on the way to New York, on a train or something. But he just happened to not be with us that time.
Well, whose decision was it to do Blue Suede Shoes?
Well, that was Elvis's.
That was?
Yeah. Oh, his decision, he did it all, really. He chose the tunes, chose the arrangements, chose what he wanted to hear, guitar and bass, piano, whatever. And he produced the sessions himself, really. We had what I call clock watchers. Yeah, Elvis, that's 2:15. Oh, that's perfect time, That's all they'd ever say, and write down the numbers and stuff, which But unless he was happy with it, they just kept going.
Did he ever tell you what to play?
He would, yeah. He said, let's try this. And then we'll say, play this completely. Hey, how about trying this? And Scotty, you try that. Bill, you try this. And I'll play this, on guitar. And sometimes it'd work, and sometimes it wouldn't. I said, it just don't feel right. He said, well, let's don't do it. We'll try something else.
Now, how would you fit recording sessions in with the touring? I mean, you toured just about all the time.
Yeah, but most of the time, if we were going to New York, especially, to do one of those TV shows, we'd always go in a couple of days before, record something, or wait a couple of days afterwards and record the next day after we did this. So usually the shows were all on Sunday. So Monday and Tuesday we'd go to record, and then we start going down the East Coast, back doing tours again from New York to Florida, whatever, wherever we were going. So that's the only time we'd stop to do records if we was in New York doing something else.
Now, I know Scotty and Bill were married at the time, but you were single in those early days.
Yeah.
Well, now, as you got more popular, or Elvis got more popular, did you find that you had your friends and family change toward you?
No, they never did. I never did change, I don't think. At least I hope it didn't, you know. And their families were the same. Everybody knew everybody. And we did what we had to do, and that was a job for us, and they knew that, so they didn't bother us.
Did you have people that tried to be, did you ever feel like you had people that tried to be friends with you just because you were playing with Elvis?
No, I stayed friends with the same people that went to high school with, so I knew all of them, you know. And I didn't meet any new friends, as it was. And I didn't care to. I had enough friends, you know, in high school. So I'd go home, I'd call them guys, say, let's go out and have a beer, let's go out and play pool, whatever. Same guys I've known for years.
And nobody treated you any different?
Oh, they were thrilled that I was on those shows, you know.
Now, when you started working with them, was Scotty the manager or was that Bob Neal?
Well, by then Bob had taken over. He took over early. And he did it for a long time, and then the Colonel took over.
Yeah, tell me a little bit about the Colonel.
Oh, well, shoot, there's nothing to say. You know, you have to give the old man credit. He was a heck of a businessman. He knew what he wanted. He knew what he could get for Elvis. And he worked on Elvis 24 hours a day. I mean, he didn't have any other artist, nobody else, but Elvis. And that's what he did. And he did that 24 hours a day. Movies, whatever had to be done, he done it. You know, and of course he made a lot of money doing it, but still, you know, I'd have to give him credit for what he did. And most artists, you know, they'll get up there in the last 5 or 6 years and they're through. But, you know, Elvis is still there after 40 years or so, and he's still going strong. And I think that was the Colonel's, had him, you know, he knew how to promote people, so he was good at it.
Well, how did you feel about the Colonel?
Oh, I didn't particularly like him, you know, but that didn't mean anything. Nobody really liked him, but you tolerate him, you know. And we didn't have to like him or tolerate him much, because we was working with Elvis. We was on Elvis's payroll, not the Colonel's.
But your pay didn't change, though, did it?
No, never did change.
Now, did you realize, had to have known Elvis was making a whole lot more money?
Oh, we knew that. Sure we did. We all knew it. And, but that was the deal I made when I went to work. So you give me so many dollars a week, and we're happy, you know. And he always did. He never backed off of that. Never did get much more, but that's the deal we made, you know.
But you didn't ask for any more?
Never did.
Well,
things were happening too fast, I guess, you know.
Yeah, but, you know, during the time when Scotty and Bill were having their problems with the Colonel and with the pay and everything, you seemed to be, you know, maintaining.
Well, I stayed neutral. I knew they had a point. They had a great point. And they should have got more money because they were the original. And that was the original deal, verbally. It's 50, 25, 25. And it never did, they figured they should have got more money, which they should have, you know, become quite wealthy. But the Colonel wouldn't let that happen. I'm assuming it was his fault, you know. And so that was the thing. He knew that if I tell them guys to be in Chicago, they'll be in Chicago. He never worried about us being late or not showing up, or drunk or whatever. He didn't have to worry about that. But we still didn't get him more money. And I think that come from management, to tell you the truth. The biggest part of it.
Now, did you enjoy playing the Ed Sullivan shows, Steve Allen?
Yeah, all those shows were good, you know, good for him. And every time we worked on those shows, then the tours would pick up, you know, more people would show up. So yeah, we had a great time doing those tours. That's all we did for a couple of years, steady, just about all the time. But had it not been for those television shows, we'd still been down in Arkansas, Louisiana, Texas, you know, doing the same things over and over and over.
Well, now, what about the guys in the Memphis Mafia? When did that come along?
Oh, they all scattered through there, and I don't know where they got the name. I'm not sure who gave them that name, but there wasn't no mafia to that. Somebody coined that phrase somewhere, and but George, you know, had been with us for years before those other guys even showed up. And Gene Smith, and his other cousin, they had been around for a long time before Esposito and all the rest of the guys, Lamar, Fike, and all those guys started showing up. They just come from everywhere and go. Joe and Charlie, I think they met him in the army or something, and they stayed on, and Joe was his like a personal road manager, which he needed, and Joe was capable of doing that. And all the guys were capable of doing things that could be done, that had to be done. Except a couple of them, they wasn't capable of doing anything. I'm not going to mention their names, but they were really gophers and hangers on. But I just don't want to mention their names. They know who they are. But most of the guys I deal with, even now, were good guys, professional people. They knew what to do.
What about Red West? Do you like him?
Yeah, I like Red. Red was always a good guy. He just got trapped into that book one time. I don't know, hadn't talked to Red about that. I've seen Red several times, and I'm just going to go by what he said. This reason they wrote it, they thought he was getting out of hand, and they need somebody to. They thought if they'd write a book about his escapades, that he would quiet down or whatever. That's the way they talked about it. I don't know. But no, I see Red from time to time. Talk to him on the phone every now and then. Sure do.
Well, what about when Elvis went in the Army? How'd you feel about that?
Better him than me. I didn't want to go to the Army. I had already been to Korea, so I was, been to Korea and back, so I wasn't about to go again. And I just went back to Shreveport and worked the little clubs again, kind of picked up where I left off anyhow. Working with some little bands I had worked with before. And then he would come in every now and then and do a recording session. Here in Nashville, I'd fly up here and work a couple of days and fly back home, and he'd do what he had to do in the Army, and every now and then he'd come up here and do a session or two, and that was it. That was just enough to sustain his record going until he got out of the Army.
Well, now what about the other musicians? Now didn't you play with Gene Vincent?
Yeah, I worked with Gene for about 30 days. Right after Elvis went in the Army, 58, somewhere along in there. And I lasted about 30 days with that band.
What was that like?
Oh, it was fun. The guys were okay. Gene was a nice guy, basically. But they were kind of a little bit younger than I was. And some of the guys, not Gene, but some of the guys were always getting just hot water for one thing or another, I was afraid I was going to be kind of thrown into the same pot, So I got back to Dallas. I said, Gene, I just think I won't go back out with you anymore if you don't mind, I said, I've got other things to do, So that's kind of the way I left with Gene. But no, I enjoyed where Gene was a great artist, actually, he's a good showman. And we had those 30 days were fun.
What about Lefty Frizzell?
I worked with Lefty about 5 or 6 months, actually. But we had Floyd Kramer playing piano, Jimmy Day playing steel. They were all from out of Shreveport. Chuck Wigginton playing bass. A guy named Van Howard, he was fronting, singing, playing a little rhythm. That's about it. There was 5, 6. Bill Peters played fiddle, sang, and Bill. They all finally, spread out and they did other things. Bill went with Hank Thompson. Floyd Kramer, he come up here, and worked a lot of stuff with Chet and everybody up here. Chuck got in the banking business, so he's retired now, down in Dallas. Van is still in the banking business, is my understanding, down around Dallas somewhere. I hadn't seen him in 30 years or more. So
did you like working with Lefty?
Yeah, we had a good time. He was a hard man to work with. He was drinking a little bit at those times, So you never know what mood he's going to be in when he come on stage, So, but we'd get through it somehow or another. We just let him do what he wanted to do, If you're drinking, you never know what the singer's going to do. So we just learned to just follow Lefty and did the best we could.
Did you work with Johnny Horton on the road or just in the studio?
No, I did one session with Johnny up here, and I think Bill Black played bass. And I don't remember the title of the song at all. We did it at Columbia B over here. But I worked a couple of days with Johnny. He's from Shreveport, too. Off the hayride. We worked a couple of little shows in New Orleans, whatever. Yeah, it wasn't steady. It just they needed a drummer for a weekend or something.
Well, what about when Elvis went in the Army, did you think that his career was over?
I didn't think so, no. The Colonel wasn't going to let it be over. That's why I say you have to give him credit, for being what he was. He was a good promoter. So he wasn't going to let it be over. So I didn't even think about that.
Now, what about the movies? How did you feel about Elvis doing the movies?
Well, he wanted to do movies. And the first ones we did were pretty good, I thought. King Creole, Loving You, a few more like that, the early ones. And he enjoyed doing those because they had like a little storyline, and the songs were good. We had a lot of good songs in 3 or 4 of them pictures. We had, #1 records out of there. But then it got to the same old thing, the beach parties and all that stuff. And it was all the same story, I think, just different people, that's all. And he did get tired of that. So we quit doing them after about, I think we did 4 pictures visually. And we just told him, no, we don't want to do this. You're the actor, we're not actors. We'll come out and we'll do the soundtracks, and so we'll just go back home. And he said, okay, if you don't want to do them, don't do them, But he was doing about 3 a year anyhow, so it wasn't about 8 or 9 weeks. We were back out there doing some more films, for the soundtracks.
And you weren't getting paid very well for those films either, were you?
No. We had to make our own deals on the film too. You got scale, whatever that was, I forget now. No, they didn't pay us a lot of money.
And the 3 of you had to share a hotel room? And
Well, no, we had a suite of rooms now. I'll give them that. We had a big suite at the Hollywood Knickerbocker in California. And they had 3 bedrooms, big living room, big dining room, big kitchen. So we had enough room. We wasn't piled on top of each other, No, it was a big old, suite of rooms, what it was.
Now, there was a period of time, didn't you guys have some meetings with Ozzie Nelson about backing Ricky up?
We went to see Ozzie one time. Rick, we had becomes friend with Rick. He come by the hotel several different times, and he said, "Why don't you go talk to my dad?" Even before James and him went with him, And I don't know. We went out and talked to him, but he was a hard-nosed businessman. He was a good businessman. And Bill kept saying, well, he wanted to be an actor, he wanted to be this. And I'm not sure if Ozzie didn't want nobody to be an actor. He wanted you to just go play what you're supposed to do. So they turned us down, and I think it was because Bill wanted to have parts in the series and everything. And he kept saying, well, I like to do this, I like to do that. And I don't think Ozzie wanted nobody to do anything except Rick and the family, which is understandable.
Consistently for...
Oh, me and Scotty have been friends since 1954. How many years is that? 45 years.
And what about Bill? Were you close to Bill?
Oh yeah, we were all close, basically, all 3 of us. Of course, Scotty knew him, more than I did, him and Elvis. But no, we were all good friends, We all had, we had to do what we had to do, and we knew that. And then, of course, Bill quit, and he got the Bill Black combo, and Bill had, 8 or 10 #1 records in 1 year, so he was selling a lot of records, working a lot of, show days every year just about.
Did he call you and tell you he was quitting, or did you
No,
have to find out?
no, he didn't say anything. That first time they quit, then we went back together, and Scotty quit and Bill quit. After one of the pictures, they quit, and then Elvis hired us back for the next little 4-day tour up in the Northwest somewhere at X amount of dollars per day. Hired those guys back.
Because you didn't leave.
No, I never did leave. See, so we was backstage first night we was back working, and he said, "Come over, I want to talk to you." I said, "All right, what do you want?" He said, I'm hiring Scotty and Bill for X amount of dollars a day. I said, well, I heard about it, yeah, it's fine. He said, I'm going to pay you the same thing. I said, well, no, we didn't. That ain't the deal we made. We made a deal, and that's the deal I'll stick by. He said, no, if they get it, then you get it. So he was pretty good about that,
That was Elvis that said it? It wasn't the Colonel?
No, it was Elvis. Now, he had his own money, but he just... I mean, he could do what he wanted to do with his own money, but he didn't, you know.
Well, now what about, now did you play any shows without Scotty and Bill? You did, didn't you?
Played one, I think, it seemed like it was down Tupelo. We had Hank Garland played guitar, and a friend of mine from Dallas, just Chucky Wigginton, and Elvis said, you know an upright bass player? I said, yeah, sure. So I called Chuck, and he flew into Memphis, and we did that show down in Tupelo.
How did that feel?
Good, it was all right. Everybody, you know, knew the songs just about, and back then, heck, we didn't work about 30 minutes, 40 minutes, and we were through, so it wasn't that you had to learn a lot of songs, you know. Hank knew them all anyhow, because he was on most of the sessions up here at one time or another.
So it didn't feel strange working a show like that without Scotty and Bill?
Well, yeah, it was different, you know, but still, you know what they always say, the show must go on, so you go and you do what you can. And they were great musicians, so you didn't have to worry about them at all. They knew what they were going to do, so we all just worked together.
Well, so when Bill did finally quit for good, you were kind of prepared for it.
Well, no, I didn't know. See, I didn't live in Memphis like him and Scotty did, so I didn't know what they were doing most of the time. I was down in Louisiana. Even when we were off, I went home. I didn't stay around Memphis at all. So I didn't know what Bill was doing. All of a sudden, he come out there with that Bill Black combo, and that's all he really needed. He didn't need to work for anybody else.
And when Elvis came back from the Army, did you expect to go right back to work again on the road, or did you have any clue? Did anybody from the office ever call you?
No. I knew we'd go back to work. I knew he'd have to record, you know. So I figured, well, he's going to call the same guys, you know, which he always did. And we come to Nashville right after he got out of the Army and did a couple tunes. And we caught a train out of Nashville at the train station here. And we went down to Florida. We did the Frank Sinatra show. So we were still intact, basically, you know, the same guys.
That must have been a thrill for you, being an Italian guy from Louisiana, to work with Frank Sinatra, huh?
Yeah. Frank was, well, you can't get close to those guys. You talk to them, say hello and goodbye, but they're always so busy. See, he had to do the whole show. He produced it. He did just about all of it. So he was always busy, and he'd wave at you or something like that. That'd be about the gist of it, you know.
Now, did you know that Frank had cut down Elvis really bad before?
No, I didn't hear none of that, no.
Yeah, because he certainly seemed to like him on the show.
Well, it put his ratings way up there. Well, they all liked him on the show because it boosted their ratings probably 100%, you know. So they all wanted him on their shows. And anytime that he was on their show, the ratings just went sky high.
What about Priscilla? Did you meet her when she came back with us?
Yeah, I met her when she come from Germany. She was only about 15 or 16 then. Never was bosom buddies, nothing like that, but I went to the house one day, me and my wife then, and they were riding horses, you know, out in the front yard out there. And she come over with Elvis, and they spoke. They was on their horses, you know, we was going through the gates. And we spoke to them a little while, and then we went to the house, and they come in, you know, sit around, talked a little bit. She'd always walk away. She wouldn't stay around much, you know. I don't know what the deal was. But maybe she figured, well, maybe they want to talk, you know.
You didn't have any indication that she was going to be running the big empire then, huh?
No. Well, you don't think he's going to pass away that early in life, first of all, you know. But she's always been really nice to me and Scotty. Every time she speaks. I've got a letter or two from her, you know, and she don't have to do that, but she's always been really nice to us.
Have you met Lisa Marie?
Yeah, you meet Lisa and you don't meet Lisa, you know. You speak to her when you see her, and she knows who you are, basically, but that's about it. She doesn't talk a lot. She's quiet.
So when you guys weren't working, you didn't socialize or anything?
No.
With Elvis especially. Did you ever hear from Elvis while you were off the road?
Well, at one time we was working a lot anyhow, so, you know, you go home for 2 or 3 days, and next thing you know, you're back in Memphis, you know, going back to work. So it wasn't that you were away from each other a very long period of times at all. Even in the movie tracks, we'd go out there and we'd spend maybe 2 weeks doing the tracks. We'd come home, and 6 or 7 more weeks we were back out there doing some more. So it wasn't that we was gone for a year, you know, it was always around.
Now, what about when you started doing the '68 special? Now, who called you about that?
The management, I think it was Tom Diskin called, and said, well, you'll be out there a couple of days. I said, that's fine, we'll come out and do it, you know. So that was fun. That was a lot of fun. We went out and done that thing. It was really it was different. I think that was one of the better shows of all that he ever did. Well produced. You know, all the guys were good. The dancers. I mean, I'll talk about the complete show now. And then in that '68 special in the round, I thought that was one of the best ideas they've come up with, and it worked. It really worked. And he was afraid, but we were always a little afraid, because he hadn't been out in front of an audience in about 8 or 9 years. So he was wondering what a real audience would think, being, you know, away from the crowds that many years. We said, well, I mean, we've talked about it backstage, you know, in the dressing room. We said, all you do is go out there and do the best you can, like you've always done, and we'll see what happens, you know.
Well, how did it end up that you were playing a guitar case instead of your drums?
Well, they had a set of drums on that stage, but you know yourself, the stages on camera look like a dance hall, but they're not. They wasn't hardly as big as this table here, and so they were sitting there, and we tried it out on 1 or 2 tunes, and it just didn't work. And director and producer, and was getting reflections from the cameras off the hardware of the drums. Even though they sprayed them down and everything they could, it was still reflecting, you know, and that was hurting the camera shots. So he said, man, we got to do something about those drums. And I said, well, we don't need them. Throw them, you don't take them away. He said, what are we going to do? Give me a black of a guitar case. We've done this before, and we'll just, I'll put it across my lap, and we'll just try to do the best we can with it. He said, that's what I want. That's the impression I want to get anyhow, of you guys just sitting around, you know, a table, or in your living room or dressing room, and just jamming. So that's I don't want a whole lot of, you know, hardware to get in the way. I said, that's the best way to do it then. Heck, we'll do it that way, you know. And they'll say, yeah, we've done this before. Let's just do it that way. And it really worked.
And it even sounds good on there.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? I listened to it. There at first, we was kind of rehearsing a little bit, and we were making more noise with our feet. And they told us, boys, now, you know, you guys are sounding good, but the feet are we're just wiping everybody out with our feet stomping, you know. He said, could you tap a little easier? So I don't know if you noticed, but we were just barely tapping our feet. And that was the reason for that. We couldn't make any noise with our feet.